victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. It is a Thursday morning in Sydney, Australia. Chris Ricketts joining us, I suppose, I'm about to say intercontinental. He's from America here, so it is still your, is it your Wednesday, mate?
Yeah, Wednesday night, 6 o'clock.
Yes,
Perfect.
Wednesday, 6 o'clock for Chris Ricketts. I'm your host, John, also known as Forty20. Joining me is my good mate, Sixties, also known as Craig. We're breaking down round 24 of the NRL New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flegg, as well as round 7 in the ladies' tournaments, which is the NRLW and the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership. 5 games on the docket as the Eels are saying in the hunt for the finals in 4 of them. Technically the NRL is still in the hunt for the finals, by the way, guys. We can finish as high as 7th still. As high as they go, as low as they go. So still in the hunt in 5 grades. Let's go off that tagline. Break down all the preview.
We'll go with that.
break down all the football, my good mates here, and how you both doing before we start talking turkey.
John, there's some. There was at least one admission made a few moments ago, which calls for me to make. Are you wearing pants? Roll call. So. Put your hand up if you're actually wearing pants.
Not wearing pants, got shorts on, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I am now.
Yeah, there you go. just so people were aware of the context, there was an admission before. I should put pants on. Yes, Chris, put pants on. Your name is not Graham Kennedy, as we said before.
Late night.
Yeah, John, I'm looking forward to 5 grades of Eels football and hopefully every team still in contention at the end of the weekend. So
kind of crazy that the Eels still in the hunt in the NRL, by the way, not mathematically eliminated, can finish as high as 7th. Takes a lot of happenings to get there, but it's that kind of year, isn't it? And we were talking about on Tuesday night, Craig, how important it is for the Eels to finish strongly on a recruitment level and on a team psychology and emotional level. But still that little glimmer of hope.
We only need, I think, 32 matches to fall the way we need it to.
just a long string permutated combination there. Yeah, exactly. All right. Before we do get into the football, though, a quick shout out to the sponsors of the show in Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Rowan, and Parramatta, as well as our good mates at Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, who you can catch us there on game days at Stirlers, do a great breakdown of the upcoming match in any given week. And so massive thanks to both the sponsors there. And of course, no matter what platform you are listening to, or if your eyes are hurting from watching us, give us a like and subscribe, whether that's YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and everything beyond it goes a long way with the algorithms to help us get out there and find other Parramatta Eels fans. And if you'd like to support us individually, you can jump on Patreon and get a $5 a month membership as well too. So the usual plugs out of the way, boys. Let's talk some football. Let's start in the Jersey Flegg. 5 games on the docket, and we'll work our way up as quickly as possible to the main events in the NRLW and NRL. But the Jersey Flegg Cup, they've started their gauntlet of death with a great comeback win against the Melbourne Storm. That was at home at Kellyville. That was the first place team last week. They now host the second place Cronulla Sharks, who they beat earlier in the season 28-18 back in round 9, if I'm not mistaken. But as we always talk about, Craig, bit of a grudge match between the Eels and the Sharks these days in the juniors. They always match up so well. Had some big run-ins in the SG Ball and the Harold Matthews. That's carried through to the Jersey Flegg. The Parramatta Eels in 4th this week, looking to knock off another top-seeded team as they make their push towards the top 2. They look like this with a couple of changes. Corey Lee is the fullback. He did a solid job last week. Couple of mistakes, but he's also the 5th or 6th string fullback, so did pretty good, all things considering. Larima Rokasuka is on one wing. Muhammad Al-Madin the other. Don Lestratus, Mr. Fix-It, back out in the centres again. Dakota Kakoi comes into the centres for Will Lewis, who we believe is injured or suspended. Matty Hunter and Josh Lynn are your first-choice halves pairing, essentially, in this grade, and have done a fantastic job for most of the season. Bo Lucian, Paddy Spence, and Ryder Tuangi are the front rowers. Chris Petrus, Trace Beattie, and Max Popo an all SG ball back row. And as you pointed out on the news podcast, Craig, it's an all SG ball for forward pack except for Paddy Spence, who is the experienced utility man at dummy half. Then on the interchange, Dom's twin brother Raphael will lead the way there with Lachlan Koinakis, Damascus Nemia, and we've lost. They've updated the match centre, so we've lost the last player who was Javan Stevenson Hala. Yeah, he's there. He's in the reserves with the 17 because we've got two other reserves there in Isaac Jim and Mason On, Craig, who started the SG Ball season on fire and then got injured after round 1 or 2, had an absolute barn burner of a game, and then got, I think it was maybe syndesmosis, a really bad ankle injury. But he looks like he's back in the mix, so that is another big boost to the Parramatta Eels. Taking on the Cronulla Sharks, as we mentioned, Craig. Any names here? Nakora Williams, we know Nakora. I remember Richard Wellbone from the juniors. Who else we got there? Rowie Pollard, Aaron Kepi, Stefano Selle. I'm just going to bring you boys back. Discord's been funky. Samuel McCulloch's their captain, who I believe is related to Andrew McCulloch. So Cronulla are doing good things this year, as they tend to do in the juniors, in second place on the ladder. But if I do look at that ladder, the Eels come into this round just the solitary win behind the Sharks. For and against, not that far behind too. They are, 14, negative 44 in the tank against the Sharks and for and against, 130 versus 86. But points counts for double, right, in the head-to-head matchup. So
correct.
Yeah,
a 22-point win
catapults them ahead of the Sharks. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
A lot to play for this week. The Parramatta Eels, as we've talked about, Craig, honestly, and it sounds so arrogant to say that, and given how down on troops they are with promotions and injuries and suspensions and how talented the roster still is in spite of that, at times it feels like the only thing that can stop Parramatta is Parramatta.
Yeah. And do you know what? Last week was almost the perfect example of that, because the Storm really got their points off the back of Eels' errors.
Yep.
And in contrast, the Eels, the way they fought back into that match, I actually, given the conditions and the circumstances, I rated that as one of the best wins of the season, especially the performance of the forwards. I thought it was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah,
they were under
Ryder Damascus, Chris Petrus, Trace Beattie, and that's not to do with the service the other guys. They were all so good.
Yeah, Chris, it's absolutely astounding that they could have a situation where if the starting pack's there on the field and Lockie Kanikis is there instead of Paddy Spence, it's actually the SG ball pack. It's insane. And even with a player or two on the bench from the SG ball pack as well. So it's absolutely crazy how well those forwards have transitioned from the SG ball into the Jersey Flegg.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the depth in the club now coming through, doesn't it? I mean, we've got this crop of juniors coming through. The fact that this Flegg team is so young, they're still running third in the competition. They just knocked over, or fourth, sorry, and they just knocked over the runaway minor premiers. It'd be interesting to see how many of these guys come through in the next few years to go into Cup and then potentially into NRL as well, because it looks like the cupboards are pretty full at the junior level. And it's pretty rare to see such a young Flegg side, particularly one that's doing so well.
Yeah, that will be the challenge, I think, for the Eels. John, first of all, identifying which players have that little bit more than potential to be able, as they go through the grades. Now, they can't keep everyone. That's just a fact. There will be a ceiling as to who they can keep, and it then becomes quite a tough choice, because individually the players give different reasons why they are a player of the future at the moment. Now, as the training escalates, it starts to sort that sort of thing out as well. But John, I don't. It's almost an embarrassment of riches at this stage. Whether it continues to be an embarrassment of riches is yet to be seen. But I think that challenge is probably going to be to keep the players that they want to keep.
Yeah, and look, Newcastle's already made a move on the squad. Matty Hunter joining their squad next year. Good pickup for the Novocastrians there. But that's offset by the fact that the Eels have the likes of Lorenzo Talatona and Lincoln Fletcher locked up long term. And that literally speaks what you're talking about, in that the club is going to have to pick and choose and hopefully get as many right as possible. And they're not going to get them all right. It's just simple maths in that you can't get it all right. And you sort of set up that mathematical equation up against what we always talk about, that scouting development. It isn't an exact science. You can get it largely right, but there are also some things that you can't expect. Some guys will blossom later. Some guys you think are blue chippers that will not quite make it, which is always a surprise, but that's how it is. No doubt, though, that the Eels are in a pretty privileged situation right now with this SG Ball squad, the Jersey Flegg squad, the guys that they've got put up into the New South Wales Cup as well. And yeah, I look at this Flegg team, and as I said, I marvel at how strong this team is, reflective of what they're missing. It is ridiculous, frankly. And to have someone like Mason Ong and Isaac Jim sitting on the periphery this week and being able to potentially bolster the forward pack of either of those two, it is a real blessing. And big job to be done against Cronulla. The Sharks, they love to play stuff. We did get the win against them earlier this year. They'll be looking for the revenge this week. They don't want to be swept on the season heading into the finals. But likewise, as we said on the news podcast, the Eels get a mega tune-up ahead of the finals. It's Melbourne twice. It's the Cronulla Sharks. And then I'm not sure who the other game was off the top of my head, but they will be ready for the finals one way or the other. And you want to get in there with that potentially the highest of the lower seeds, because I don't think you're catching Melbourne, but you could get in there at second place. Yeah.
John, how do you see this particular match going against the Sharks?
Look, Will Lewis being out, that hurts. And then we also lost Biggie Yeti Samuel, who scored one of the comeback tries on the weekend, and he's been excellent for the Eels this week. Obviously, Dakota Kakoi, and whether it's Mason Ong, whether it's Javon Stevenson, Harlow, Isaac Jim, or maybe even a third or fourth man in the mix there. I'm not sure who goes onto the bench. You'd expect them to come in and do a good job. But based on what we saw last week, again, just if the Eels minimise, it's not even about minimising the errors, it's about minimising the really bad errors. Because you can cough the ball up and still turn around and defend it, but they spotted the Melbourne Storm 10 points instantly in that game. And that's a pretty fair handicap to put on yourself, and they're still good enough to get out of it. So I look at that team and just say, go out and do more of the same. Their attacking structures have been simplified a little bit by the fact that they're also down to their fifth or sixth string fullback in Corey Lee, which puts more pressure on Matty Hunter and Josh Lynn to facilitate frontline playmaking rather than being more edge-orientated there. But they've done a good job doing that. So I look at that forward pack. Rabbitohs on a tear. Chris Petras with the game winner last week. Trace Beatty with the best game I've seen in his young career. Max Popo, just a energizer bunny at lock forward. If they take control of the ruck, if they take control of the early fringes of the edges, I think it'll be hard for the Sharks to come back.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think as you guys know, I struggle to watch too many of the games, so I kind of live vicariously through Jono's or Craig, your updates. So from my perspective, I'll be led by you guys on this topic. But I do, having read between the lines here, I think that this feels like a team that's starting to come good at the right end of the season. I think there's a potential that they could go on a bit of a run here. And if you beat number one, then you beat the second place team in a row, then clearly there's no one that they would fear coming into the finals. And it's a young team, seems like they're not going to get intimidated by much. And the scars of it doesn't seem like they're holding any scars from the SG Ball grand final loss, where they obviously lost in a heartbreaker to the Chook. So from my perspective, it does feel like these guys are starting to get onto a bit of a roll now after a year that's been disrupted heavily by injury and players moving grades.
And they do deserve credit for what you just mentioned there, Chris, in that they have not borne the scars of that SG Ball grand final loss. They've used it as fuel and fodder to get better. So well done to the young men in that regard.
And that's what I was ready to jump on as well, is that they have that opportunity to get a title out of the season still.
A more prestigious title. A title that the Eels haven't had for a little bit too. So
yeah. So look, I will also tip them, and like you, John, I always feel like the only thing that will stop this Eels team is themselves, and it's and do you know what, one of the one of the most basic things that they have to do, and and I'm probably sounding like a broken record, is complete the set after points.
Yeah.
Because if they get that, or even just off any kickoff at the start or end of the game, the start of the halves, if they get that set right, that to start play, it's probably been the area where they've let themselves down the most this season. And to me, it's just get to your kick. And I know there's times where they'll push it and they'll maybe make breaks and get on a bit of a roll after scoring points, but just as much, they've let themselves down at those times. And I just like to see them tighten that up. And I think that'll take care of a lot of the issues about beating themselves, John. So I'll tip them to win this week. And with that, we now move on to the Harvey Norman women's premiership game, John.
Yeah, and so the flag took place at 1 o'clock, or will take place at 1 o'clock out of Kellyville on Saturday, and we actually wind back the clock for this one, going back to 11:30 a.m. They're out at Redfern Oval, also known as Ironbark sometimes, I believe. I don't know if it's been changed, but it was Ironbark for a bit. Taking on, as you'd imagine at Redfern, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Eels come into this one on the back of, is it 4 straight wins now, Craig? They've
yes,
been,
it is. They've lost the first two.
Yeah, lost the first two against legit finals contenders by slim margins, and have since won 4 in a row, doing some great stuff for a young, inexperienced team. And they've got, I suppose, a couple of changes, but I think they're changes that were ratified from game day last week into the official team list this week, which means they look like this. The dynamic Ella Carlisle is their number 1 and fullback. Dallas Graham-Wivell was a late inclusion last week. She officially takes her place on the wing with Caitlin Pearden running the opposite flank. Of course, Dallas has been a fullback by trade, but getting a look in at this grade on the wing. Tamira Liardi, a former Pathways prospect, comes into the centres. She'll work opposite of Kiana Takarangi. Matisse Bettridge and Aaliyah Sufan are your halves pairing, and have been the halves pairing for the majority of the season. Obviously, Rosemary Beckett was in there for a short stint before getting the call up to the NRLW. In the front row, it is Taylor Falanico, Ruby Jean Kennard-Ellis, and Chelsea McKira, the dummy half. Then you got Josie Lenars, Fontaine Tafua, and Jess Kennedy, who was their captain and lock forward. Interchange, Ashley Pottinger, Carlia Gray, Alana O'Loughlin, and Liana Dimmick. And look, we talk about this. There is no Jersey Flegg for the ladies, and this is essentially Flegg and Cup rolled into one. Very similar flavour of team to the Jersey Flegg, isn't it? We saw all the SG Ball players in the Flegg. We see all the Tasha Gale players in the HNWP. And much like their Flegg brothers, the girls are getting the job done despite having that youth and inexperience, I suppose, count against them, but also working for them with the energy and the pure talent levels.
Yeah, it was an interesting game to watch last week against Wenty, because there's obviously a rivalry, and there's some girls that have played in the same teams together that were facing each other on the field last week. I think there was a little bit of niggle that might have been going on there. You mentioned Ella Carlisle, John, and she's dynamic. She's absolutely dynamic. That individual try that she scored, where I reckon she beat about 3/4 of the team in the run, where she fielded a kick and then weaved through the kick chases, and then dodged and weaved and found herself into open spaces through the rest of the defenders and the cover defenders, and nobody could get near her. She ended up having some issues, I think, with cramp after scoring the try, because she received quite an extensive period of treatment in the in goal after scoring, and then required a bit more. And then I think when Wenty scored a late try, she basically dropped like she'd been shot in trying to chase the ball, and they just couldn't get. I'm assuming it was still cramped. They just couldn't get it out of her legs, and she had to leave the field. So she's quite an attacking weapon that's there. But as you said, John, they've got the combinations there from both this last Tasha Gale team and also previous year's Tasha Gale team. So a lot of the girls know each other quite well. And by the time you've got a few other players added in there, you can see those combinations are now working for them. And whilst they're a very young team, they've got some good skills, good combinations, good trust with each other, and it seems to be coming together nicely. The interesting one there, of course, is Kiana Takarangi, sister of Brad Takarangi, and Kiana's been around the game for a while. If she ends up making an NRLW debut,
there's a cool piece of history.
We're talking about, I think, the first time a father, a daughter,
and then the son-daughter pairing,
and his son,
have played for the same club.
Top grade for an NRL club.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm sure. I mean, look, there is a rival clan in the Hopewadies that could probably lay claim to that very soon as well. Yes, if Kiana does get it to the NRL, then she would have, and she does play with the Parramatta Eels. Then yes, that is a very cool slice of trivia and history for the code. Between father, son, and daughter.
Actually, I think the Hopewadies have had that. To be fair,
for all for the same club for Manly.
Not for the same club. So yes, for the same club, yes, but they have all played NRL, NRLW
first grade in their respective code.
First grade level, yeah. But for the same club, and certainly for Parramatta,
the important one for Parramatta, exactly.
Yes. So, look, I'll just dive straight into it. It's there's no better form than winning form. Confidence comes from it. I'd have to tip Parramatta to get the job done with this one. What about you, Chris?
I'm always going to tip Parramatta, but I'm just looking at the ladder now, and there's only 5 games left of the season, and they've got this game against Souths and another one against the Dogs in a couple of weeks. Are probably the 2 crunch games. If they win those games, there's a good chance they run the table and go 5 from 5. At which point they could jump up as high as minor premiers there. So there's a big chance for them if they win this game. At the moment, I think the top 7 are only separated by 1 win.
Yeah.
So 10 points first place, and Parramatta with the for and against a little bit thin, sitting in 7th. But there's a big chance for them here if they can beat Souths and then beat the Doggies in a couple of weeks' time.
John, the interesting thing too is the improvement in the Harvey Norman women's team from last year.
Yeah, they were scrapping and battling last year.
It was first year.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons that needed to be learnt. I think there was a change of coach partway through the season as well. So, some disruptions. And we're seeing the evidence of what the Eels female pathways is able to bring to senior female football.
And hopefully this is like the first stop, because we just saw the Tasha Gale and Lisa Fiola have phenomenal seasons and claim their respective premierships in the junior pathways. And that's just more lifeblood pouring into the arterial run through to the NRLW, isn't it? So the fact that the HNWP is really finding its feet, very encouraging. 4 wins on the trot, a chance to go for 5 now. South Sydney, I looked at their run of form there, and they've battled pretty hard for their wins, and they've had the common opposition they've had against the Eels. They too, I think, just got past 20. Go back through, was that round 1? Yeah, 22-20. Drew with the Panthers, who the Eels dusted up. Had a pretty comprehensive loss to the Knights, who the Eels beat. Right? They beat the Knights, right? They lost to the Steelers and to Cronulla. To Cronulla, yeah. And then dusted up St. George and squeezed past the Bulldogs and the Central Coast Roosters. So, look, you talked about winning form is the best kind of form. Eels have that 4 in a row. It's also, look, it's an away game. That's gonna be a hurdle to overcome, but I would back their form and just the hot hands they have in this team to maybe eke out a closer win than I expect.
Yep, and now we come to New South Wales Cup, John.
Yeah, and this one's another set your watch to watch this one, because it's the Eels and the Blue Bags. The Newtown Jets are coming to town to take on the Eels as part of our doubleheader of the Jersey Flegg at Kellyville Park. Kickoff is 3:00 p.m. on Saturday in round 24, as the Eels and the Jets have a top 4 tussle. Parramatta have booked their spot into the finals at this point, but they do have the clamour for seeding left in terms of who they're going to play in the finals and how high they can go. No one's catching the Warriors, but maybe the Eels can secure 2nd or 3rd by the end of the season. And to do that, they've got the following team. Arpa Twaddle, who's having a great season, continues his role at fullback. Jake Tungor and Hayes Dunster will run the flanks. Araz Namva and Richie Penasini are the young centre pairing. Speaking of youth, Lorenzo Tawataina works alongside Ronald Volkman in the halves. Woody Gregg, Tony Mattaielli and Joey Lussick are your front rowers, of course, Joey being the dummy half there. Tyrese Lakini, Jordan Samrani on the edges, Dan Keir at lock forward. No Saxon Pryke, he picked up a long-term injury, unfortunately, last week. But Tyrese, who's also having a very good year, gets promoted to the starting team in the wake of that reshuffle. On the interchange, it's Manny Luke, Brock Parker, another young gun in Josiah Funa Ayuta, and then Samuel Louise, who rounds out the interchange as the utility back in that four-man battery. And then they take on the Blue Bags, and just looking at that team, Craig, Taj Ford, Michael Gabriel, there's a former Parramatta Eel there. There's our guy Samuel Stone Street, who can't get a look in the first grade. They've got Rajab and Puru in the halves, Jaden Beryl as the dummy half. You got another Puru at lock forward. Jonte Jr. Beff and Mees end up landing at Newtown. I forgot about that. Former Parramatta Eels prospect there. Had a bit of time for Jonte. Solid front rower. But yeah, Eels come into this one in third position, I believe, on the ladder. That is Telstra Premiership. I need to go to this grade here. Yeah, Eels third, the Blue Bags in fourth. Parramatta are 4 points ahead, although that is partially due to a bye. So they're a win. Both teams have drawn, actually, so they're just one win ahead of the Blue Bags. So there is plenty to play for in this game.
Yeah. John, the thing that stood out about the Eels in New South Wales Cup this year has been their resilience and that next man up mentality that's worked. They've secured some wins that I didn't expect them to get. And in some of the losses where they were really down in troops, they were ultra competitive, even in going down. So I've got a lot of time for what they've achieved this year. At this stage, I intend being there at Kellyville Park for both the Flegg and the New South Wales Cup. Looking forward to seeing Arpa continue his rich vein of form, and also Lorenzo, how he continues to adapt to that senior football. It's going to be interesting also to see what ends up transpiring in terms of any changes to first grade and how that might filter down. Should we end up with Isaiah Iongi playing in making his return from injury, because there's all sorts of permutations that could flow on from that. All we can do is call it based on
the teams as presented. Exactly, yeah.
Look, it will be a tight game. You always have to have respect for the Newtown team, no matter who they're the feeder club for. They seem to have done this great job of retaining that Newtown identity, even with players who are in the top 30 for other clubs. Those players seem to embrace pulling on that blue jersey, and whether they're playing at Henson Park or at other fields, there's a spirit of the old club that remains, and it's. I guess as I said, you have to admire that. And John, I used to go and watch when Newtown were first trying to stay as an entity, and they would play in the Metropolitan Cup as Newtown. And I remember going and I spent a year where I watched every Hills Bulls game. I was living in a road that was not too far from Crestwood Oval, where I would it was still about a 20 to 30 minute walk, but I'd walk to the ground and watch the game. And when Newtown were playing, you'd see legends like Chicka Moore there. And it was just seeing that link, even though it was Metropolitan Cup level rugby league, seeing a legend of the game and of their club there, I always admired them as such. And I think it always makes it that much tougher when you face Newtown, that you've got not only players that are looking to impress to be back in the NRL, but you've got that, I guess, the pride of pulling on the Newtown jersey as well. I think the Eels will get it done, but I think it's going to be as tight as last week's game. It might come down to 2 points, 4 points.
And you wouldn't be surprised if the Blue Bags would pull out the victory either. They've been a Fawn and Parramatta side in this grade for a number of years, being one of the most consistent performers in the New South Wales Cup, like you said, regardless of their affiliation. It has been with the Cronulla Sharks for a while now, but they have been affiliated with the Roosters and the Storm in the last couple of decades and always turned out and had great results, like you said, regardless of who their NRL feeder is. So, yeah, Chris, probably the first grade you've got a bit of familiarity with today, which is always good. What are you looking for in the both the young guns and the sort of fringe NRL guys on the weekend?
Firstly, can I just touch on the Newtown piece? I mean, as someone who loves the history of the game, I couldn't agree more with what Sixties just said. It's one of the best days out. It's like going back in time when you go out to Henson, you have a couple of beers at the Triple H.
Yep.
Yeah, and you wander out there, and you've got the bloke on the penny farthing doing laps and everything. I love that they've found their niche back again, even if it's the second tier. I think it's just a phenomenal experience. And then, if anyone hasn't done the beer food footy festival, it's worth a look just to see. I know there'll always be 8,972 fans at every game, but sometimes that could feel like more, or sometimes that could feel like less. So that's worth a look. But as it relates to Parramatta, I mean, this is the grade that I'm looking at very closely at the moment to sort of see what sort of movement we've got. Obviously, we've got a bit of uncertainty around Bailey and his future with the club, and uncertainty probably feels more like he's most likely not going to be there. You want to see what's happening in Reggie's to see who could potentially come through and either fill a role in first grade or be depth for the following year. And there's a few guys who've been really lighting it up this year. Samrani's obviously got a pretty decent run, but it's fair to say that the rest of the outside backs have all done a great job. Hayes Dunster is a player that, if they're looking for a straight winger in the future, I mean, he obviously had a decent sort of run interrupted by injury when he was a couple of years younger, but he seems a far more complete player now and a real meter eater out at the back. So from my perspective, I'm obviously looking at those sort of players. And then any Parramatta fan that knows anything about what's going on in the lower grades is watching Lorenzo Talatona with great interest, I think, to see whether he continues to handle the playing against the men with the aplomb that he has to date, whether he can continue to level up whilst playing up against the guys who are potentially, 10 years his senior, 10 to 15 years his senior. And so far he's handled it, because I think everyone's looking to see whether or not he can either be development squad or, maybe even challenge for a first grade spot in 2026. If I think about this year relative to last year, we're in a similar position on the ladder in NRL. I think we're 13th at the moment, but there's not much separating the bottom few teams. And last year we were sitting in about 16th or 17th. But if I think about last year, we had an old roster and we were running close to the bottom of the table in reserve grade. It felt like the cupboard was really bare. I think it speaks volumes to the recruitment this year that even though we're coming 13th and we started the season abysmally, where we sit now, I think there's a lot of hope in the hearts of true Parramatta fans, because you can see depth coming through. You can see the juniors coming through. We've recruited really well with our depth. And the players we put in first grade there's been a real development curve that you can see. It's really apparent. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying that I'm really excited every week to see what's going on in New South Wales Cup, because there's great potential that some of these guys could be in first grade for next year.
Yeah, I really want to echo what you've said just then, Chris, because on top of everything else, when you look back at earlier this season and then consider the players that the Eels have released, which are numerous now, and I'm talking about during the season. I'm not talking about Reg and Gutho going before the season started. We're talking about from Joe Offengowie,
Cartwright, Madison, Hands.
Right, Cardi, Shaun Lane, taken a break from the game. Maddo, Hands, it's just been endless there. And then you look at the players who are out injured. And for the New South Wales Cup, we also have to include the promising Will Latu.
Yes, who's been fantastic when he got in the field this year, but has been bogged down by some real bad luck.
Yeah, so when you were just talking then about seeing the depth that's there, it's been a level of depth that you would have thought with all those players out of action or no longer available, that the depth would have been sorely tested. And yet they've risen to the occasion, even to the point where the Eels released Ethan Martin during the season, who played for Norths last week and had quite a decent game for Norths, because he just couldn't get over his injuries during his time with us. But he had a pre-season or part of a pre-season with the NRL. So he had been rated by the club, and he's another one that they've allowed to go with all the depth that's coming through. So there is a lot to be pleased about, given the relative positions of the lower grades and how the NRL team is performing at the moment. So, John, what's your tip? I'll go and I've tipped.
You want to back Parramatta, but I'm doing that knowing that Newtown are going to turn up for a big one. And if the Eels aren't on their game, Newtown could easily not just win but run away with it. So the Eels will need to be at their best. But again, like the Flegg, it's a great tune-up ahead of the finals, and it gives them a real chance to know where they stand against a fellow contender. And I'll be really looking forward to this game at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, and for people who are less familiar with some of the players, who would be 3 players that you'd nominate for supporters to watch, John, out of this Eels New South Wales Cup team, if they go there in person or if they're watching a stream?
Like the in terms of like long-term prospects, of course, the 2 that really jump out of the page there are Lorenzo and Josiah at 5'8" on the interchange, but being more of a cohesive balance between sort of short-term and long-term. I think we mentioned him at the top, but Arpa Title's having a fantastic individual year, Craig. We floated the idea of him being the perfect utility back for the Parramatta Eels in the long term, and he can play 1 through to 6, 1 through to 7, really, and maybe even in the back row. He's got a bit of a nuggety frame there. So I'll put Arpa right there. I think just for the pure excitement factor, Lorenzo stays on the list, and that's not a knock on Josiah, who's also an outstanding prospect, but he's just getting his feet wet in the grade off the interchange bench. So Lorenzo, Arpa, and then I think the other one is Ronnie Volkman, who's probably the forgotten man in the battle for the halves next year, but he's been really, really important for the Parramatta Eels in this grade this year. With Dean Hawkins being drafted essentially full-time into first grade, a lot of the pressure of steering this team around, all the pressure really of steering this team around, has fallen on Ronnie Volkman's shoulders, and he's done a really, really good job for the Parramatta Eels, being exactly what they asked him, or when they signed him, what they asked him to be coming into the squad. And so I think he deserves a bit of spotlight on him this week.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. Chris, you'd agree?
Yeah, look, I mean, for what I've seen of Ronnie, and I don't watch every game of New South Wales Cup, but what I have seen, he's been very strong. I don't want to speak ill of him. I think that's kind of his level right now. I think he's obviously had a couple of really bad, couple of injury-ravaged years. I think when he came back into first grade at the start of the year, that was too quick for him. We maybe didn't do the right thing by him, even though it was obviously by necessity. I think where he is now, he'll find his feet again, and there's a good chance that he'll play a bit of first grade again in the coming years.
Yeah, and also I didn't mention when we're talking about the depth being tested as well, the injury to Saxon Pryke as well. So
well, I did mention it. I did mention it to the start of the team list, but yeah, that really unfortunate. He's having a really strong year. Had a really rugged role on that back row, been playing through the middle predominantly, but also on the edge here and there. Yeah, that sucks. Saxon is a really good prospect and a great young man, and hopefully can make a speedy recovery ahead of the preseason.
Yeah, and now we come to the NRLW match between the Eels and the Broncos. Big ask of the Eels this week.
Yeah, this one unfortunately clashes with that New South Wales Cup game, 3:15 kickoff on Saturday. Eels heading up to Brisbane in Suncorp Stadium to take on the Broncos, who are one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the premiership this year, so it's a big challenge for the Eels. Quickly, the Broncos look like this. Tamika Upton at fullback. They've got Kerry Johnson and Howie Maddock on the wings. The absolute unit that is Malay Hafunga is in the centres, opposite of Julia Robinson. Former Eel Gail Broughton in the halves of the Broncos. She'll work alongside Ali Brigginshaw. Annetta Claudia Nuasala is one of the starting bookends, opposite of Kiwi Joseph. Jada Ferguson at dummy half. Lauren Dam, Romy Teitzel, and Shalom Sawaso, the back row. Destiny Brill, Chelsea Leonard-Dutzy, Shanae Sissoko, and Regan Hicks on the interchange. Then their extended roster, Lafayette, Hudson, Marker, and Adams. For the Eels, they look like this. Abby Church, the fullback, and co-captain. Zoe Fay and Martha Matellia on the wings. Fleur Ginn and Lindsay Tui, the young centre pairing. Rosemary Beckett will work along Rachel Pearson for the second week running. Of course, no Cassie Toihiku, no Rory Owen in the back line for the Eels. You've got Elsie Albert, Ruben Charrington, and Brianna Eels. Probably the best individual unit right now for the Eels, that front row. They've been really good, although the back row has been pretty handy too, and they get bolstered by the returns of Boss Kapoor and Kendi Charrington this week. Boss on the right edge, Mahalia Murphy, the captain, on the left, and Kendi, the lock forward. That means the interchange is a bit shaken up this week with Tanika Todd-Hunter, and Paige Travis, regular fixtures there, but Rivoli, Arlo, and Chloe Jackson getting bumped from starting to the interchange rotation, and they can hopefully be big impact players for the Eels in this one. Extend the roster: Tess McWilliams, Mia Middleton, Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis, Chelsea Makira, and Yasmin Baker. No main official here, but our old mate Liam Kendi's in the box apparently for this one. So, you pick your poison no matter what you get in these grades. But yeah, Eels, they come into this one. Have they still got a spot inside the 6? They are 7th. So they've been bumped up by 2 points of for and against by the New Zealand Warriors, who they lost in that head-to-head game back in round 2, taking on the second place Broncos, who have dropped the 1 game and have the best points differential in the competition right now. It's going to take an almighty effort, boys. But we know the Eels they've got levels to their game that we haven't seen this year. I think based on what we saw last year in the development and recruitment of individuals, there are levels to this team we have not seen. But the big question is, can they put it all together in the space of less than a week after playing on Sunday against the Cowboys?
John, I fear playing any team that includes Tamika Upton.
Yeah, she is just a relentless threat, isn't she? She's so good.
Oh, she is. This is just my opinion. So far and away, the best female rugby league player in the world, and that when you're talking about some of the players that are running around in the NRLW, there's a part of me that feels stupid in making a statement like that, because I feel like I'm ignoring a whole lot of other talented players, but she can do things that other players can't do. And that's the only way that I can measure her. And the fact that she's just been instrumental in the titles of the Newcastle team when she joined there, and she was part of such a strong Broncos outfit prior to that. Now being back at the Broncos they already had such talent that was there before. It feels unfair to add her back into the mix as well. John, the Eels are going to have to rise multiple notches to compete in this one. You have to be brutally honest about it, because
they're rank outsiders coming to this clash, yeah.
Yeah. Now they have won before in being rank outsiders, so it's not impossible. But we just seem to be playing at a slower pace than when we faced quality opposition. It's felt like we've played at a slower pace than what they did.
Yeah.
And we have to be honest, the Eels attack, apart from one game against Canberra, it just has been clunky and just hasn't done what it's needed to do. Now, do you then say, well, the platform hasn't been laid well enough by the forwards? Maybe, but I think the forwards have done a reasonably good job. And this week, we've got arguably the strongest pack that we fielded. I think the front row has been in really strong form. I think Ruben Cherrington's gone to another level with her play, and the young players that have had their opportunity this year in both Riverlea, Arlaw, and Tess McWilliams, I think they've been shining lights as well. The return of Boss Kapua is interesting because she's played, one game? Is it in the last 18 months? Something like that?
I think
because
was
it their first game last
year? She got
injured
in round 2 against Cronulla, I believe.
Round 2, okay. So I knew it was barely any football last year, and here it is that we're more than halfway through the season, and she's finally making her return. That will be interesting because she's a slightly bigger body than Chloe Jackson, and we love the way Chloe plays. But they've been throwing some big opposite opponents have been throwing some of their bigger, stronger players at Chloe, and I think I might prefer Chloe coming off the interchange at the moment. I think it's been a big ask of her to play longer minutes, in not so much in terms of her fitness, but just in terms of her size on the edge against some of the more dynamic runners of the football in the NRLW. So, John, I'm trying to look at a way that we can win.
I think if it's been for Dinkum, the path of victory is very, very narrow, isn't it?
I think this is where I'm going to give a head and heart prediction because they're going to be different. The heart says that the Eels produce one of those against all odds victories. They play a spoiling game. They put Brisbane off their game because that's what I think they have to do. I think they have to spoil. I think they have to scrap. I think the likes of Kennedy and Ruben have to get into the faces of their opponents, just niggle a little bit. I think they have to compete on all those little 1%ers. And if they do that, then they might be able to, as I said, put a bit of scoreboard pressure on the Broncos and maybe eke out a win. If they play like they did last week, the Broncos win by 20. That's the head prediction. So the heart says the Eels scrap out a 2 to 4 point win. The head says, based on exposed form, they get a score put on them.
A touch up, yeah.
So, but I'm still going to follow through with the Eels' first try scorer and best on field. So the Eels' first try scorer, I'm going to go for a sneak try from Ruben.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to suggest that Kennedy will be best on field.
Nice.
So I've spent a bit of time talking now. I should throw it over to you two fellas so I don't dominate there. Chris, what do you think?
I think it'll end up, well, firstly, that loss last week really hurt, didn't it? I think that's a game against another team that you're competing for a spot in the finals. You're at home. You probably got to win that one. But looking forward, I think it'll be Parramatta 22, Brisbane 20, a late disallowed try from Tamika Upton for being offside off a kick regather.
History
I feel like we've seen the script of how this is going to work.
Yes.
Yeah, so game by the Eels.
Why not?
First try, I think we're going to see Elsie Albert. She's going to barge over from close range and score. So similar to what I think you were thinking, Sixties, but just one wider. And then best on ground, I'm going to go with Abby Church. I think she's going to light it up on the Suncorp deck and have a wow of a game.
Yeah, John, I just want to ask you about Abby because Abby's obviously been recognised as one of the absolute elite NRLW players. She's the Blues origin fullback, and she just is constantly competing for the Eels. I think she's been impacted by the Eels' clunkiness.
Yeah.
Where she's been injected into the play, it feels like we're not taking advantage of her pace off the mark and her elusiveness. It feels like the lines just aren't quite right and the timing's not quite right. Am I reading something into it that isn't there, or
No,
are you seeing it?
I think you're right. I think we've talked about that imbalance in dichotomy between wanting to dominate the middle and be expansive, and how the Eels have been very yin or very yang in that regard. They haven't been able to find the balance of punch it through the middle, then shift the ball. They've either been over-focused on punching it through the middle and having some degree of success, but then making mistakes, or shifting it sideways without, the north-south setup. So I think perhaps the single biggest victim of that has been Abby and her game. She's been getting bad running angles and bad running lines to take on the edge defense of the opposition. She doesn't get the early ball that you want to see to help facilitate some of those, particularly on the left edge when Rory was there, some of those attacking ventures that way. And look, it comes back to some of the issues we've had with Rachel's form this year in the halves. And obviously no Cassie Tohiku doesn't help now, but it falls upon Rosemary Beckett to help facilitate the better passages of play, or the more cohesive passages of play. And if this team is going to turn it around, you need to find a way to put the focus back on Abby's game, on integrating Abby's game into the team game, and finding a way to maximize her skills, because her skills unlock a lot of other players in this team. And I think you're right. She and maybe she's also been a bit of a victim of the extended preseason because of State of Origin. Maybe that's also sort of slowed her down a little bit. I don't know. But I don't think that speaks towards some of the sort of schematic issues that we're seeing with her, and a lack of consistent impact in the game. And when she does get the ball, it's not an ideal situation. So I think if the Eels are to be competitive this week, you sort of look to, like you said, integrating Abby into a more, sort of 2024 paradigm, where last year she was killing it with getting early ball down the edges and being able to test the opposition sort of centres and back rowers. So I think if the Eels are to win, she's the key. Best on field would be Abby in that hypothetical. First try scorer, I'd say she'd be involved in seeing it up. So maybe Martha Mattelli down the short side on the right, which is opposite of what I did say of her preference play on the left. But we saw her do that against the Dragons, actually, and have the try taken away via the bunker. But I would look to Abby and Martha Mattelli maybe combining in that regard.
Yep. Okay. So you got a score?
No, because I think the Broncos win this one, and I'm hoping that the girls spite my negative tip and find a way to win it. And at which point I'll take any kind of win, a 1 pointer or a 10 pointer, or a blowout would be fantastic. But it's the Brisbane Broncos at home, so I think any win would be a huge surprise.
Yeah. So anyone that doesn't see that we can still be a bit realistic here.
Sometimes
John's just sometimes, yeah. Okay, that takes us to the NRL, the main game of the weekend on Saturday night out at Accor Stadium. And John, let's get into it.
Yeah, rounding out an extremely busy day on Saturday with all the grades in action there. 7:35 p.m. kickoff. Allianz. It's Allianz, Craig. They keep changing stadium.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, see, they keep changing stadium names. That's what gets you. Allianz used to be over there, and now it's here or whatever, or a core. I can't remember. But yeah, Eels taking on the Rabbitohs. Not quite spoon bowl, not far removed from it though. The loser of this one stays in the mix for maybe getting gunned down by the Titans. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, their big storyline in this one is Alex Johnston, as he looks to continue his chase down of Ken Irvine's long-standing try-scoring record, and he is on the wing for them. At fullback, though, it's Jai Grave, a little pocket rocket, with Bailey Bentley-Hape on the other wing. Latrell Mitchell continues to work in the centres. He'll be opposite of Isaiah Tass. Ashton Ward called into the halves this week with Jamie Humphries, the halfback. Saliva Havili and Sean Kepi, former Parramatta Eel there, Pathway Spire, are the starting front rowers. Peter Mamazoulis is the dummy half. Jacob Host and Talis Duncan on the edges. Jai Arrow, the lock forward. On the interchange, he's been drafted in the play alongside his brother, Shakai Mitchell. Liam LeBlanc and Brendan Smith alongside Thomas Fletcher, the final three pieces on that four-man battery. Tyrone Munro, Lewis Dodd, Celesi Atata, Hazen Mellars, and Cody Walker inside the 22. Although maybe there are shenanigans to be played, but given Cody's injury history, I'd be surprised if they rushed him back into the halves. But for the Eels, though, technically speaking, an unchanged roster from the one that took down the Cowboys, which means Joash Papali'i at fullback, Zach Lomax and Josh Adokar on the wings, Will Penasini and Dylan Brown, no longer the 22, got the 4 on his back. He'll play in the centres. Dean Hawkins and Mitchell Moses in the halves. Front row, Jermaine Hopgood coming off maybe his best game of the season. I don't want to put the mockers on him, but hopefully he can continue to build on that one. He had 2 good games, 1 bad game, 1 great game now in his last month of football. Hopefully he can continue to close out the season in strong form. He works in the front row alongside Riley Smith and Junior Barlaw. Charlie Geimer on the right edge, Jack Williams the left. Luca Moretti starting lock forward. We've seen him and Dylan Walker bounce between starting and interchange, so I'm not sure if it's going to change this week, but Luca named to start. Dylan on the interchange, of course, with Talon De Silva, Matt Dury, and Kelma Tuolangi. Extended roster, Jordan Samrani, Dan Keir, Hayes Dunster, Tony Matteoli, and the big one that you mentioned earlier, Craig, Isaiah Iongi. And we talked about the potential for Cody Walker to be included in that team, but Isaiah Iongi being included in the Eels is, look, I'm not going to say it's a surefire indication that he's going to play, but why would you have him in the team if he's not close to playing?
Do we then say the same about South with Cody Walker?
Yeah, Cody Walker's got the injury issue though, right? He has so much soft tissue damage he's gone through this year and been in and out of the team. Iongi's coming back from a broken hand, which is just an impact injury rather than a soft tissue injury. There is an issue. If he's not ready, there is obviously a chance of re-injuring the hand, but it's much more straightforward as to whether he's healthy or not. Whereas Cody Walker's calf and hammies and whatever issues had this year, they linger. And for Souths who want to be ready for next year, I think there's a better argument to wrap Cody up in cotton wool than there is Isaiah, but that's not to say that Cody couldn't come into this game.
Yeah. So, look, I was talking to a friend of the throw yesterday, and just said that my feeling about Parramatta at the moment is I go into matches feeling like we've got a chance in every game. And even though there's times where, like we talk about the Jersey Flegg team, that we're our own worst enemy, there's an element of consistency of performance that seems to be there at the moment. And that consistency being that there's a fight in this team, that they will fight and scrap. And even when things aren't quite working as they should, and even when it means that they're fighting and scrapping where they probably shouldn't need to fight and scrap, that they're involved, like they're in the match, most matches, and I go into it with a belief they can get the job done. Now, this is a game where they're probably favoured to get the win. And I look at this and I look at the respective teams and I think we can get over them in the forwards for a start. And then I look at the backs and I go, well, they've got an obviously talented Latrell Mitchell that's there. But outside of that, we simply have to watch that consistency of Alex Johnson, that he will finish any opportunities that he gets, and young Gray at the back has the sort of pace that can cause some problems. But by the same token, the Fox has got the pace that will cause some problems. Mitch Moses is an elite halfback. We've got a winger who presents such an aerial threat that teams have created tactics this year that referees are ignoring to block Zach Lomax from being able to do what he can do. And that's a whole other topic about what's been happening with the blocking of Zach Lomax. But I think every time I look at the threats that an opponent has, I look at our own team and go, well, we've got our own threats. So I actually feel like we deserve to be favourites in this game, and that I would be highly disappointed if we didn't get the win. Chris, what do you think?
I feel the same way. I mean, we've talked about some of the potential permutations there. I'm kind of with you guys. I think that the fact that Iongi's been named suggests he's probably going to line up at fullback. The big question then is going to be, how do they reshuffle the deck? I tend to think that the most likely outcome is that Footy Dean would be the unlucky one, and you'd probably put Joash into the halves to see whether he has the potential to be a first grade 5'8" next year. But, I mean, to all the points you've just raised, Sixties, I would agree with all of them. I mean, our form has been pretty good. We ran the Dogs and Penrith pretty close. The scoreline didn't necessarily reflect that, but we were right in those games. We beat Brisbane in a bit of a boil over. We probably should have beaten Melbourne. And then a game against North Queensland where we won narrowly, but it probably belied the game. I think we were actually should have run away with that one. So I think we've got to be favourites for this. And the one thing I would say, if Cody plays, I just am a bit concerned. Lomax has had some horrible reads in defence in recent weeks. Just kind of like running around, jamming in and not trusting his centre, doing things like that. When Cody plays, that left edge for South is absolutely lethal. You know, they like to play that way almost all the time, and that's basically why Alex Johnson is very likely to break Ken Irvine's record this year. So that would be the one watch out for me. But yep, I think Parramatta will win. I think we'll win because it's Parramatta. We're not going to win handily. I think we'll win, but within a converted try. We'll all have to get pacemakers at the end of the game. I think first try scorer for mine will be, it's not exactly exciting, but I do think it'll be Moses' kick for Lomax. And man of the match, again, not exciting in the slightest, but we are a different team when our captain is playing. We are a team where I feel like if Mitch Moses had played the full season, we'd be right there on the cusp of the 8, if not inside it. So I think it'll be Moses, man of the match, Parramatta by 6 points, Lomax first try scorer. I guess I haven't taken any long odds there, but the way we play, I think that's the way it'll go.
Yep, John.
Yeah, look, for anyone that likes, I don't know what the odds are because he's in the 22, but I'll go for Isaiah Iongi for first try scorer, getting back into the team and scoring first. I will go for his running mate in Joash as best on field though, because Mitchell Moses, again, like you said, Chris, like realistically is always going to be a serious cog for the Eels in any kind of win. And I'm going to tip the Eels for a big win. Let's go 40 points to 14. You can give 2 tries to Alex Johnston, so everyone gets to feel good in this one. He gets closer to the record, but the Eels get a big win.
Attaboy, Jono.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yep. Look, I see this as being a game, as I said, where I think the Eels forwards will set the platform for victory. Chris, like you, I am concerned about our right side around Zach's defensive decision-making where he's been jamming. And even apart from that, he's missed tackles that he shouldn't have missed. Even when he's getting there, like players are pulling out of the tackle or he's spinning off in contact. And as John and I spoke about in the instant reaction last week, it's almost like he's going for a play for a big moment rather than just executing what needs to be done. And I think maybe there's a level of frustration he might be feeling with his own form, that he's not quite up to what he's produced in the past. It doesn't mean that what he's producing is substandard by any means, because he's coming in, he's doing all those kick chases, his carries in yardage are still producing like about 150 metres or more per game. So he's a valuable contributor, but he's not producing some of the moments that we want because he's aiming for big moments. Whereas I think he'd create the moments just with executing the plays right now. Just let it happen. Like I think he's putting himself under a bit of pressure right now. That's my only concern defensively for Parramatta, because I think over on the other side, Dylan's presence at centre was, I thought, really effective last week. It maybe didn't quite click in attack. He was maybe finding his feet there, but without question, he shut down some dangerous-looking plays last week. Just didn't panic at any stage. I think I think it's just a matter of us getting what we need to do, like just those basics, and we get it right. Riley Smith, and John and I also spoke about this, his inclusion in the team where he's playing more minutes than Talon De Silva, I think it really comes down to the fact that Riley gets those 1% moments. I think he understands them. He's a player that always is executing
Mr. 1%,
a bit of extra pressure on the line speed, the pressure on the kicker. Always been the one that's looking for the offload. Always there to tidy up a ball that's on the ground, just hustling all the time. His game it's almost like it's 100% hustle, and he has very few selfish moments in a game. But there's times where maybe you think, well, should he be running a bit more? And he ran a little bit more last week. But he really does see his job as getting that ball to Mitch Moses or whoever the first receiver might be. And that's probably why Mitch gave a bit of a spray last week to Talon, because when he took over, or even when they were both on the field, that service just was that little bit off. I'm sure Talon's learned a lot from that. So having rambled a little bit again about how I see the game playing out, I'm not quite as buoyant about a big score. However, I will go for a reasonably decent win. I think the Eels by something like 32-14. First try scorer, I'll go with the Fox. I'll go the other side of the field with the Fox. He bagged a double last week. There's nothing to say he's not going to get something again this week. And I think for player of the match, I'll avoid the obvious of Mitch Moses, because he probably will be the best on the field, especially if we are going to win. But I want to go with a forward, because I think that the forwards are the ones that are going to lay that platform, and I'll go for Junior to be best on field.
Good picks, Craig. But before we do wrap it up, some breaking but expected news. Members' email and club announcement has come out while we're recording. Shaun Lane officially announcing his retirement from the NRL. The Parramatta Eels can confirm that Shaun Lane has made the decision to retire from the NRL, marking the end of an outstanding playing career and the beginning of a new chapter within the club, which is what we expected. While Lane remains contracted for the remainder of the 25 season, he has accepted a new role within the club's Elite Pathways and NRLW programs, focusing on mental skills and athlete wellness. Lane's decision reflects a natural transition into life beyond the game, where he will continue to make a positive impact on the next generation of Eels players. Eels General Manager of Football, Mark O'Neill, praised Shaun's contributions to the club both on and off the field, and I quote, "Shaun has been a wonderful ambassador for the Parramatta Eels. He carries himself with humility, integrity and professionalism, and he has been an exceptional role model for younger players," O'Neill said. We're proud to see him step up into this important new role with his leadership and passion for player welfare. Where his leadership and passion for player welfare will continue to make a difference. Shaun joined the Eels in 2019 and quickly established himself as a vital member of the team. His on-field leadership and consistency were vital to the club's success, including being a key contributor in the Eels' 2022 NRL Grand Final side. And this is a quote by Shaun. "I've absolutely loved my time playing for the Eels," Lane said. "This club means a lot to me, and I'm incredibly grateful for the experiences I've had and the relationships I've built here. I'm really thankful to the fans for their unwavering support throughout my career. It meant the world to me. I'm now looking forward to continuing my career at Parramatta in a different capacity, helping our young athletes thrive on and off the field." And a final wrap-up from the club. While playing NRL, Lane has reached significant educational milestones, completing a Bachelor of Health Sciences, a graduate diploma in psychology, and is currently working towards his Master's in Positive Psychology. The Parramatta Eels thank Shaun for his continued service to the club and look forward to supporting him in his transition from player to mentor. So finally, an official response to a question that fans have been plaguing us with on a weekly basis. It's been in the works, obviously, for a while, Craig. But there is very much due process here. When a player retires from a playing capacity and transitions to an off-field role, you can't just go like that. There are actual hoops and paperwork that need to be done. And clearly the club and the NRL have now found a way to get to that point where they can announce it. And Shaun Lane, I mean, it was laid out in that debrief there, Craig, but Lane has been a huge part of the Eels since joining the club in 2019. Was desperately unlucky not to pick up Australian and New South Wales honours after 2022, where he was perhaps the best back row in the competition, but has been immense for the Eels. And now we've seen his passion for this field in the documentary that was released by the club a little bit back, and there's no surprise that this is now a point of emphasis for him in his post-playing career.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And obviously we wish Shaun well in that new role. It's, as you said, it's not an unexpected announcement. And Shaun has spent his playing career preparing for life after football. And he's made that decision. It's obviously one that he's comfortable in making. It's one where there's an opportunity at the club for him to continue his post-football career. It's not an unusual situation for Parramatta to find a role within the club that allows a player to transition from professional football player to his post-football career. And what I mean by that is there are former players within the club who've worked towards particular roles. Now, Dave Gower, for example, he completed a lot of studies. He's in that education and wellbeing space at the club. Shaun Lane followed a similar path in terms of education. They put him in education and wellbeing space. And the Eels have great staff in that space and are ranked up near the top of the NRL and NRLW in education and wellbeing. They have programs that are the envy of other clubs. And I think it's because of the caliber of people that they have working there. And we've been privileged to meet a number of those people over the years, John, the likes of Auntie Chris, the Rev, Rev's been a guest on our podcast. So they've had, some wonderful people, Mila and Shah, who have run the Parramatta House there, and they are now moving on, but they've also been part of that. So there's just been a great. It's been a great space for the Eels,
Dean Feeney,
but they're not the only ones. Yeah. They're not the only people that have transitioned into roles. So we've also had Jordan Rankin, who has gone from the playing staff into the coaching staff in Pathways, along with Josh Hodson as well, and both of them are full-time employed in Pathways coaching within the Eels, and we're seeing the results of that being the titles that have been won in the junior reps and also the positioning of the lower grades, because both of those people are involved in the lower grades. Jordan, of course, being coach of the Jersey Flegg team, Josh, who was coach of the Harold Mats, but he's also involved with the coaching of the lower grade teams. Josh, he comes out and he does a bit of specialist coaching. I think he goes out, helps a little bit with the NRL as well. So, good to see this post-career into new career that the Eels employ with former players. Chris, anything you want to add about Shaun?
No, I'm glad it's all settled now and just wish Shaun all the best. It can't have been an easy road for him. And, his form in the last year or two was probably not at the level he would have liked. And but you can't begrudge the fact that he was a brilliant player at his peak. and ultimately his career was impacted. I mean, he had that broken jaw, and I think that really set him back, didn't it? So
Yeah, he had that horrible
you know,
run after 22 of the injuries. And look, it's a
Yeah.
silver lining, a very small silver lining. He'll be one of the few Eels recently that'll be afforded a home send-off at the final round of the competition. We farewelled a number of great players from the club just on ill-timed chances in the pre-season or off-season or mid-season. So Lane gets the lap of honour, or something similar to a lap of honour, at Combank against Newcastle Knights, which will be nice to farewell him. And I imagine fans will give him plenty of love when he turns up.
Yeah, and
As we
also I
cement
guess as
7.
well for the, yeah,
Was just
and also grand final day too. He'll have that.
Oh yeah, he
That'll
gets
probably
the big
be
ute,
horrible.
the big ute drive around the field. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Yep. So okay, well I think that just about wraps things up, fellas. So finally we actually get some news breaking while we're recording and not
yes, very
an
rare.
hour afterward.
It's not never great news. It's not like we're farewelling a really great club player here rather than welcoming a new talent. But it is nice to be able to catch some news while we are recording, and not say, "Oh God, how do we fit this into the schedule?" But yeah,
exactly. So fellas, thank you for this recording. Chris, thank you for jumping on all the way from America, even though it was a nice, comfortable time for you to be doing it, unlike the 4:30 in the morning for our normal live podcast. John, thank you for your flexibility, and because we are jumping around all over the place with when we record preview podcasts, so I appreciate that with John. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course Parramatta Leagues Club. I should also mention that the cafe up at the Eels Centre of Excellence, the Paradise Cafe, is run by Parramatta Leagues Club. And if you go up to the Centre of Excellence and go into that cafe, if you're a member of the Leagues Club, please take your membership card, because your membership discount apply to the cafe. And it's a really nice cafe that's there. And if you happen to be there when the Eels are training, you can sit on the veranda and have a coffee and watch the boys go through their paces. So I'd encourage people to get up. And you know what? Even if they're not training, it's a great cafe there with plenty of parking behind the Centre of Excellence. So, John, thank you, of course, to all of our listeners. And if you wouldn't mind giving a like and subscribe, no matter what platform you're on, that is always much appreciated. And as I always say, fellas, go you mighty Eels.